Hello and welcome to the Africa Today podcast from the BBC World Service. Almost a year after Zambia defaulted on its debt, it turns out the debt owed to China is even higher than previously reported. And the WHO has a global vaccination target for today. To Zambia now, and it's not even been 1 year since the country defaulted on its debt, that a new study made by the China Africa Research Initiative has estimated that the Southern African country now owes China way more than previously thought. $6 billion to be precise, almost double the amount disclosed by the previous administration. The new government, led by President Hakainde Hichilema, has promised to tackle corruption and end the financial and economic crisis that has seen the country's debt rising. Zambian economist Grieve Cherwa works with the Institute on Race and Political Economy at the New School in New York. He's currently in the Zambian capital, Lusaka, and he told Audrey Brown how the initial debt started.
For a long time, Zambia had lagged behind on infrastructure development. For about 20 years, from 1990 up to 2010, we weren't building enough roads, bridges, hospitals, schools to keep up with population growth, but as well as to keep up with the demands of economic development and economic growth. So then China presents this really interesting opportunity, right? They finance infrastructure, right? Our traditional sort of friends in the West weren't too keen on financing infrastructure. The World Bank moved away from financing infrastructure at some point in the 80s, right? But it's infrastructure that we needed. We needed power stations, we needed schools, hospitals, those kinds of things. And China was saying, look, we're going to fund these things. We're going to give you loans and be able to build these roads that you so desperately need. So this is really the origin of it, that in the year 2010-11, we realized we need infrastructure to develop. That's how pretty much everybody does it. And China presented an attractive option.
So were the roads and hospitals and power stations and so on actually built?
Yes, I mean, they were built. Certainly we've added to the road infrastructure, to the hospitals, the schools, power stations. I guess the question that one would ask is, did we get bang for our buck? So we've certainly added to these things, but I think what seems to be the reasonable analysis is that we could have gotten much more for the amounts of monies that we were spending. And I think this is the topic about corruption, inflated projects, et cetera, but certainly we did add to the stock of infrastructure.
Right, and the debt, it appears, is bigger than was calculated or disclosed by the former government of Edgar Lungu. Nearly double, in fact.
Well, there's quite some debate about that. I mean, there's this new study that came out of Johns Hopkins yesterday, which seems to suggest that the debt to China is much higher than has been disclosed by the Ministry of Finance. But like any study, it uses a methodology, which is a great methodology. It's an addition to the debate, but it's also quite limited. So they use something called internet sleuthing, which is to say they search the internet for project financing from China to Zambia. But it's a very complicated thing because, you might have been promised $100 million by China, but has that money been dispersed? Has it been used? Has a project been delivered? So it's quite a complicated business. We now have a new minister. We've had him for 5 weeks. He needs to come out and issue an official statement so that all this hearsay, all this uncertainty, all this debate is put by the wayside.
Well, the new president did say, though, that the debt was higher, significantly higher than had been disclosed. But I should point out, I suppose, that Bwalya Ngandu, who was the finance minister under President Lungu, has said it's not true that the numbers were understated and that no debt has ever been hidden. Can we take that statement at face value?
In the initial days of his presidency, he did say that. But subsequently, he has not repeated that line again. We need the government to come in and tell us for sure what is the status of that debt.
And should China, specifically as the biggest creditor, claim its money back, what would Zambia lose?
If China says, look, I want you guys to pay the debts, pay them now. I mean, the thing about debt is that it's complicated. Even if we owe China $7 billion or $5 billion, they won't demand it tomorrow. Yeah, if they don't give us any space to breathe, then we're in trouble. Or if there is a default, then we're in trouble because a default might then spark a serious reaction in the exchange rate, what is called flight to quality. So folks begin to, dump the Zambian kwacha and, divest their positions from Zambia. This might sort of set in motion a very vicious cycle where the price of things just goes completely crazy and haywire. So there's that possibility. And I think it's incumbent upon this government, the new government, to really engage our creditors, be they China, be they the IMF World Bank or the Eurobond investors, bring them around the table.
Zambian economist Grieve Chelwa. Still to come on Africa.